Last week, a YouTuber shared a video he captured in which he claims a shape-shifting UFO has been spotted in the Colombian sky. According to this guy, the mysterious object almost looked like it was alive, and that maybe it was. Scott C. Warren, a prominent conspiracy theorist, analyzed the footage and concluded that the object was of alien origin. On the scene, witnesses claim that the object changed shape while floating in the sky. While many people accepted that the sightings were of UFOs, many others contended that it was photoshopped. Many also called it a morph video. But as I've been doing my research into UFOs, I've been pulling groups of stories that stand out to me as fascinating, interesting, or strange. And I'm making these videos to highlight those stories. And so today we're gonna look at two fascinating UFO sightings. But before we get into any of these stories, if you're interested in the strange, dark, and mysterious, delivered in story format, you've come to the right channel. I would ask you to please gently roundhouse kick the like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on new episodes. With that being said, let's jump into the video. So, Timur Schwartz is an Indiana native and Emmy Award winner TV producer. He's the author of a number of popular books, including The Lost Journals of Nikola Tesla, Time Travel, A How-To Insider's Guide, and is a contributing writer for such books as The Paranormal World of Sherlock Holmes and Brad Steiger's Real Monsters, Gruesome Creatures. Anyways, I think it's safe to say this guy wrote a whole lot of books. And as a journalist, Schwartz has traveled extensively and investigated paranormal activities and phenomena and other unusual mysteries from such diverse locations, such as the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Great China Wall. And this is what he said when he was interviewed. There is no doubt that UFOs are strange. The fact that they are usually seen silently zipping around our skies is weird enough. But throw in the fact that many UFOs that appear to look solid are seen to constantly change shape and size. It's enough to drive any serious UFO researcher to take up butterfly collecting instead. It is one of the great mysteries of UFOs. How can something that looks so real not behave like a solid object? How can it change shape as rapidly as smoke in the wind? This has led to wild speculations on the true nature of UFOs and allowed skeptics to dismiss the entire phenomenon as simply misinterpretation of natural events. However, if you take into account all of the reports of UFOs seen to morph from one shape into another, then possibly the vast diversity of UFOs is not so difficult to explain. Like this one, for example. On June 29, 1954, the British Overseas Airways Corporation Stratocruiser Centaurus left New York's Idlewild Airport bound for London. Just after 9 p.m., the aircraft passed 170 miles southwest of Goose Bay, Labrador, flying northeast at 19,000 feet. The crew suddenly noticed an object to the west of the plane that was roughly 5 degrees of the port wing at a distance of about 5 miles. As they drew closer, the crew could see a large pear-shaped UFO flying in formation with 6 other smaller objects. Against the sunset, these objects appeared dark, with the 6 smaller UFOs changing their positions around the larger craft, which seemed to change from its original pear shape to a telephone handset shape. And in the words of Captain Howard, what looked like a flying arrow, an enormous plane was turning in too close to us. With the object in close proximity, it was clear that it was solid with definite, clearly defined edges. As the jetliner drew closer, the smaller UFOs formed into a regular line and seemed to merge into the larger object. And the remaining UFO appeared to suddenly shrink and vanish right before our eyes. And Captain Howard concluded, "They were obviously not aircraft, as we've seen them before. All appeared black, and I would swear they were solid in shape. There was a big central object with 6 smaller objects merging together or apart." A Baptist pastor, while traveling with his family in the western part of the United States on June 8, 2002, observed a silver aluminum object flying above the mountains. And the pastor said to his wife, "When I first noticed the object, it was in the shape of a box and about the size of a small plane. I tried to show it to my family and I was planning to where to look. Taking my eyes off of it for a moment, it changed to a round bottom cup shape without the handle. The sighting lasted about 30 seconds. The craft did not seem to be in a hurry but just cruising around. And I don't know how it disappeared, but I lost sight of it." On June 5, 2005, a man was stopped at a traffic light on Route 422 in Niles, Ohio, when he noticed a bright silver, metallic UFO in the clear blue sky in front of his car. According to his description, it was a thin cigar shaped with rounded ends, and there was a large spot of a sun glare shining from the left back end of it. With my arm completely extended, its length would have been about the width across of a quarter. About 6 seconds after he first spotted the unusual object, it seemed to change shape, with the front end moving slightly inward so that the object took on more of a boomerang shape with one side smaller than the other. At that point, the UFO was seen to ripple and get fuzzy at the edges. And after that, it completely vanished, leaving the witnesses wondering what they had just seen. An odd shape-shifting UFO was actually captured on camera in 1994 at an undisclosed location within the Nellis Air Force Base bombing and the Gunnery Range complex in Nevada. The videotape is said to have been smuggled out by contractor personnel who had operated tracking stations on the Nellis Range. Even though the UFO was photographed by a very good remote-controlled, fixed-mounted camera, it still has that fuzzy, cotton ball look about it, which seemed to be common among UFOs. The Nellis Test Range UFO footage is an excellent example of what seems to be a real UFO caught on tape. This object, tracked by military radar and cameras, flies boldly around in bright, clear sky, seemingly unconcerned that it is being watched and photographed. The object recorded on videotape, flying over the desert terrain that day, appears to be constantly changing shape. At first, it appears to be disc-shaped. Then it looks somewhat like a small jet with round, stubby wings. Then it changes into 3 balls. At no point in the video is the object ever clearly defined. It is as if it is surrounded by fog or mist, keeping it just out of focus. What kind of object are we dealing with that is never still, is always changing shape and seem to not be quite solid? I'm kinda wondering what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. As the object slowly spins, a projection of some kind can also be seen. More often than not, the craft has a morphing, indefinite profile that appears to be self-luminous. Physicists have speculated that what we see around shape-shifting UFOs may not be the UFO itself, but rather the energy change occurring around the UFO as it moves between dimensions. Apparent vehicles that seem to change shape while in the air may not be spacecraft at all, but cross-sections of 4-dimensional objects that bisect familiar 3-dimensional reality. At the end of the 1970s, Alan Holt and David Froning worked on an extension of Einstein's unified theory, involving what they refer to as a field propulsion craft. This spacecraft would change color and shape as it entered different stages of flight. This phenomenon is similar to that described about the many UFOs that have been reported.